We are on the cusp of the release of Stable Diffusion, and if you guys don't know what Stable Diffusion is, it is a new text-to-image generator similar to the likes of DALL-E 2 or MidJourney, except there is a few differences, such as the fact that Stable Diffusion, when it does release, is going to be fully open source, meaning anyone can download Stable Diffusion and mess with it how they please, adjust its settings and pretty much anything about it, although they're going to need extensive coding knowledge and resources to do so, but they could create a website with it, or an app, or a Discord bot, or pretty much anything they want with it and use it to their heart's content, and of course run it on their own machines. And Stable Diffusion has very few limitations, especially if you run it on your own machine after it's released, but we're going to get into all of that lore later. Anyways, I want to look at this tweet here, Stable Diffusion release update. So the model is going to be adjustable, and they've been testing a classifier to package alongside with the model to make this possible, and he's currently working on the best parameters for this with beta testers, and also working with some experts on licenses for the final bits to make sure we have the right ones. And the weights have been going out, apparently, to researchers. And yeah, they're working hard towards the public release of Stable Diffusion. Stability AI, ever since this has premiered, maybe a few weeks back, they've really been full steam ahead to get this thing out to the public, but not without some backlash. Not because of the quality of Stable Diffusion. I mean, taking a look at a simple example of what Stable Diffusion is capable of, we can clearly see that this is a very, very capable model. If you watch my DALL-E 2 Stable Diffusion comparison video, I talk about every difference in between them, but yeah, this is a model that will be able to run on a GPU with a little over 5 gigabytes of VRAM, which is, that's a consumer-grade graphics card, and it will apparently be able to generate images in just a few seconds with a graphics card like that, and they're pretty quality images. I mean, sometimes DALL-E 2 beats it out, but sometimes Stable Diffusion can beat it out in other areas, so I think personally they go back and forth in terms of quality, but yeah, there's so many amazing and interesting stuff that you can generate with Stable Diffusion. I mean, there really is very few limitations here. Controversy really has been stirred up here. Stable Diffusion is going to have no barriers at all when it is publicly released with the weights and everything as an open source product, which, makes sense. That's how most open source projects are released, but most open source projects aren't as powerful as Stable Diffusion will be. I mean, you're going to be able to generate anything. You can already generate celebrities and stuff like that. That's already allowed, but full nudity is going to be allowed with Stable Diffusion on your own graphics card, and we only know what kind of horrible people on the internet are going to try to do with that. So various people on the internet are, pretty upset about this, and we're going to go over some more prominent figures in the AI community today. And because I'm going to be looking at some prominent figures in the AI community, I want to mention that no one in this video is intended to be attacked, especially by my viewers. I respect everyone that I'm going to talk about in this video, and I do not condone any behavior going after any people that I mentioned in this video for their opinions. So, starting off here, let's talk about OpenAI's DALL-E 2 content policy. Do not attempt to create, upload, or share images that are not G-rated or could cause harm. G-rated is pretty strict. I mean, you can't generate any weapons of any form at all. Obviously, no hateful symbols, negative stereotypes, harassment, violence, self-harm. Sexual nudity, of course, is completely banned. Shocking stuff, so this is like really gross things. Illegal activity of any form. You couldn't, generate anyone robbing a bank, let's say, and especially not a celebrity doing something illegal. Deception stuff, so no major conspiracies, no political things of any form or function at all. Public and personal health, you have to disclose the role of AI entirely, so you need to make sure that people know what you post is AI generated, and you must respect the rights of others, so you can't upload people for variations or in-painting or anything like that. And to prevent deepfakes, they're currently prohibiting uploads of realistic faces, even if the face belongs to you. And they say report anything to support@openai.com. And I also like to mention here a little quick side note. I've spoken with a few viewers of this channel who've been banned from DALL-E 2 for reasons that they don't think they should be banned, meaning they don't think that they've violated the rules here, and they've contacted support, but not have heard back from OpenAI at all, which is really interesting. It sounds like there's a little bit of an issue with OpenAI's support in general, but that's more of just a rumor floating around. I've just heard a few people complaining about it. So this content policy is extremely strict. I think that we can all agree, especially with the no blood of any form, everything has to be G-rated, no weaponry. I understand maybe no sexual stuff, some of the really bad like hate symbols and stuff like that. Obviously that makes sense. I could even understand like the no politicians and stuff like that, but you can't generate images of anyone. It's a very strict symbol that they're putting out here. I completely understand why OpenAI wants to do this. They want to avoid lawsuits of any form. They don't want people, using DALL-E 2 to create horrible things because, of course, DALL-E 2 is a very powerful tool. But, a lot of people are very upset at how far OpenAI has taken their content policy. And as Emad, the CEO of Stability AI, of course, who makes Stable Diffusion, said that OpenAI actually used to be more of an open company, meaning they wanted to make open source products similar to what Stability is trying to do right now. But at some point, it seems that OpenAI has had a change in business structure, and now they want to own, as a company, own everything that they create, which I also understand. But, it's a little contradictory to their name there. They don't release open source software. So let's take a quick look at the rules that Stable Diffusion has put forth. Follow Discord terms of service. So I'm sure most of you already know what Discord's terms of service is. It's pretty basic stuff. Be mindful and respectful to others. No excessive copy pasta or text wall/flooding. So this only applies to the Discord. This doesn't actually apply to the bot. Absolutely no safe for work stuff, no nudity of any form, no extremely sexual stuff allowed on the Discord server, whether you're posting it or generating it with the bot. And that just goes for the Discord bot, though, and probably their bot when they release it on their website as well. But that's not if you download the open source software yourself. Discriminatory behavior, including racism, sexism, slurs, language that insults a certain group of people. So, that's obviously not allowed on the prompt either, but again, not allowed if you're downloading the open source software and using it yourself. So, pretty much anything is going to be allowed when it's open source. And they also describe this Discord as a PG-13 Discord. Obviously, the whole program is not going to be PG-13 when you download it and use it for yourself. So these classifiers that they're sort of rolling out here are for the bot in Discord, but I don't know how this is going to affect the full open source release. Right now, they are trying to sort of filter out, similar to DALL-E 2, generations that are unsavory or have nudity or bad stuff in them. So this is a form of censorship. There's actually been backlash in the Stable Diffusion community itself. A lot of people are against censorship of any form, and I also understand where those people are coming from. And, you can report a generation if you think that it should be allowed, and it's flagging it as a false positive, as you can see down here. But this really seems to only be applying to the bot that they're going to release on their separate website, but I don't think this is going to be really integrated into their open source software, and even if it was, someone could take it out. It's open source software after all. So now that we're really caught up on, DALL-E 2's rules and Stable Diffusion's separate rules and the different risks that are involved with creating these technologies, let's get into the community backlash itself. A really prominent figure in the AI community, Bakz T Future, who I've, been following for quite some time now. I really like his content on YouTube. I suggest you check it out. I don't think there's anyone in the world that loves multimodal and AI stuff as much as this guy. But he was quite concerned when he discovered Stable Diffusion's capabilities and the fact that it's going to be released as open source software with all of these capabilities. He wanted to cancel Stable Diffusion and not release the weights for Stable Diffusion. I don't know if that's still his current opinion on things, but he was very concerned about the harm that this could possibly do to the AI community inadvertently. And he actually talked to Emad, it seems, on the Discord himself. So if a celebrity gets depicted negatively and in an NSFW context, Stable Diffusion ends themselves over body image issues. Is it worth it to release a model prematurely, is what Bakz had to say about this. And Emad said, well, how utilitarian do you want to get? And, I think this is a decent question to put forth. How does Stable Diffusion prepare to deal with the eventual issues that are going to come forth? People are definitely going to generate horrible things with Stable Diffusion's public release, no doubt. But, Emad does have a certain belief structure and an opinion on this, which we will get to later in the video. And then the actual Stable Diffusion Twitter account was suspended of all reasons, and I still don't even know the reason for this. It really wasn't doing anything bad that I noticed. It was just sort of advertising Stable Diffusion, posting cool generations and stuff like that, retweeting Emad, I think, a few times. I don't understand why it was suspended, but it was suspended. It's since back up, I think, as of today, which is really weird. Some people believe it's an influx of reports from concerned artists who don't want to lose their livelihood over something as powerful as a fully open source and free text-to-image generator. I'm not really exactly sure what the case of the reporting was. Bakz then predicts that the Stable Diffusion's controversy and problems, it's just basically the beginning of the controversy for Stable Diffusion. I'll talk about my opinion personally on that later in the video. And obviously, this upset some of the open source community, and he talks a little bit about that. Bakz loves technology like this, so you don't want to take this with a negative impact, as if he just wants to ban all technology like this. That's really why I'm actually including him in this video, is because I know that he does love and care about the future of this technology, yet he has an opinion that it is dangerous, and I think he does a good job representing that side and that view of things, while Emad, as I'll show later in the video, I think does a good job representing the Stable Diffusion community. I mean, he's the CEO, for God's sake. And, people accused him of fear-mongering. I don't think this is necessarily fear-mongering. It's very reasonable points, even if you disagree with it. It is dangerous technology nonetheless, right? Even if you think it should be open and free no matter what. So then Bakz reported that Stable Diffusion's leader, or Stability AI CEO, Emad, updated his community today with some updates around releasing the model more safely, which we've been seeing with that censorship I showed you in the video, where they're sort of trying to block bad generations. Of course, I don't think this is going to apply to the open source model. I mean, it's open source. Anyone can mess with it as they please and remove whatever filters, or, even if it takes a lot of work and maybe some time, eventually those filters are going to get removed out of the open source model, because there's a lot of people out there that want to generate certain things with the model. I'm not sure exactly what the open source variant of this model is going to look like, but even if it has a ton of blockages in the way, it's going to be open source. But anyways, I think, Bakz was happy at least to see something, at the very least, being done about the possibilities that Stable Diffusion holds. But yeah, that's Bakz T Future's take on things. Again, I really like his content talking about AI, so yeah, I'll link his channel down below, but I thought that he was a really good representation of the worries some people in the AI community, and maybe some artists as well, at the possibilities that Stability AI holds. So let's go and get into Emad's take on things, which I'm actually going to pull from an interview from another prominent figure in the AI community, an actual YouTuber, somewhat similar to myself, although he is a lot more technical than I am, and a lot more experience in the field. So this portion of the video was taken from this video, The Man Behind Stable Diffusion by Yannick on YouTube. Again, I'll link this video down below. I strongly suggest you check out the entire interview. It's very interesting. But he actually asked Emad about this. What if your model produces bad outputs? Like, what are we going to do about that sort of a thing? I'm going to let Emad speak about this himself. I don't mean to take any content away from another YouTuber, but I thought the context in this interview was very important to include in this video.
So you mentioned this open source, closed source, paternalistic, and so on. I agree there is a paternalistic element, but there's also a PR and a legal element, right? If DALL-E 2 was accessible to everyone and so on, and people find, oh, I just need to enter this prompt to make it produce something that's really horrible, that may produce a backlash, right? Saying, well, these models are clearly not fit for release and so on. What is your sort of opinion if someone comes to you and says, your model produces horrible output, here I can show you? What do you say to those people?
I would say, of course, humanity is horrible, and they use technology in horrible ways and good ways as well. But the reality is, for this particular output, the vast majority of people are creatively constipated. We have been conditioned to consume constantly by social media and big tech giants, and they want us to consume more according to their parameters. We see a model like this, we've had 3-year-olds use it in refugee camps all the way to 90-year-olds. We're putting it in mental health settings and other things. The benefits far outweigh any negativity, and the reality is that people need to get used to these models, because they're coming one way or another, and restricting them means that you become the arbiter.
So to go over what he just said here, basically to the question of, what if someone says that, your model is capable of horrible things, whether it be in a legal setting or not? He basically says that they're coming no matter what, and there's nothing, that anyone can really do to prevent these models from being prominent. And he says that he thinks in general, the power of these models to do good far outweighs the power of them to do bad things at the open source level, which means an uncensored level. So that's really his take on things. You guys can let me know what interpretations that you guys get in the comments from watching this, but that's sort of what I was getting out of it.
You can't use the word Ukraine in DALL-E 2, because it's political. Then as well, if you type in sumo wrestler, they randomly add into the prompts, because they do pre-prompt and post-prompt processing, a diversity filter. So you get Asian female sumo wrestlers, because they randomly add ethnicities. There's nothing you can do about that, right? If you want to create a localized version that, is more respective to your culture, for example, in India, you can't do that because you can't access the model, right? And they don't have the capacity to let you fine tune it. So instead, what they're saying is AI for us and our clients, because it's expensive to run these things, not for everyone else, What they're really saying is we don't trust you as humanity because we know better. I think that's wrong. I actually trust people. I trust them to be weird and nasty in some cases, because, 1%, 0.1% of people are weird. Many people on this call are weird. I'm weird. But at the same time, like I said, I think that this is positive technology for humanity, and it should diffuse, because then the pace of innovation to make it beneficial as well as to combat negative uses is far greater.
So to go over that last little piece there, he makes it very clear. He thinks that, DALL-E 2 takes the censorship piece a little too far, even though now he is also engaging in something that's a little bit similar. He doesn't take it nearly as far as DALL-E 2, but he is starting to censor things a little bit more on the Stable Diffusion server. But, he says that he thinks that OpenAI doesn't trust humanity, and I agree with him on that. I don't think they do. But should humanity be trusted? That, I think, is the philosophical discussion that, is going to happen for ages and ages. Anyways, he says that he trusts humanity to be nasty in some ways, that humanity is going to create horrible things with Stable Diffusion. Anyone with any experience on the internet knows that people are going to try to generate bad things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it should be banned. And then he also talks about some of the good possibilities that can come out of open source AI software. Obviously, it's just going to make AI and the creative stuff that text-to-image AI has more accessible to everybody. And, you can use it for really various specific applications. It's really up for debate, right, philosophically, whether or not that power greatly outweighs the horrible things that people could possibly do with this technology. In the background here, I'm just letting the Stable Diffusion Discord run as people generate stuff, and we'll get into my personal take on all of this. I think that even if Stable Diffusion wasn't going to release open source, this kind of technology is coming anyways. I think the genie really is out of the bottle for AI technology. It is coming. It's on its way. Someone is going to release an open source model similar to what Stable Diffusion is capable of, whether Stable Diffusion exists or not. Similar to what Emad actually said on the matter. However, I do think that with Stable Diffusion's release, eventually something will happen where someone will generate something really awful with the open source model, whether that model has been modified to create it or not. And of course, it's going to be generated on their own PC, so Stable Diffusion, it's not really being generated on their servers. They're not approving of the generation in a legal way. Whatever they generate with the model on their own PC is going to be so bad that it's going to stir up a news story of some form, maybe a celebrity or something like that, something really bad of a celebrity, and people think it's real, so the celebrity gets attacked, and the celebrity gets upset, and then they find out, the root cause was it was an AI generation. They're going to see Stability AI as the company behind the AI, and boom, lawsuit against them. I think that's the direction that things are headed in eventually. I think something like that is just bound to happen, given the bad people out there. That doesn't mean that my belief is that Stable Diffusion shouldn't release. Like I said, I think the genie is just out of the bottle. That is going to happen no matter what, with Stable Diffusion or without Stable Diffusion. Trying to add filters onto it and stuff like that is probably just delaying it more, which there's nothing wrong with it. I think that if that's your belief that we should try to stop horrible things as much as possible, I still think that's a good belief system to have. I think it is inevitable, though. I'd also like to mention Stable Diffusion and Stability AI is a pretty easy target for a lawsuit for something like this because, they know that they have money, and if they win in court, that Stability can pay them. The money exists. I think if things do go that route, if there is some sort of court case over some horrible generation, it could become illegal to generate certain imagery in the United States of America. I can't speak for other countries. Every country is going to have their own laws and stuff like that. Not that any law in the United States or in another country is going to stop people from trying to generate bad things. Even if it's illegal, it's not going to stop people. People are always going to find those loopholes. Maybe some illegality might scare a few people away, but the bad people are going to do bad and illegal things. They're not above that. However, if Stability AI were to be taken to court for some horrible generation that someone made at home, I don't think that they should be legally liable for that. I'm no lawyer, though, and I can't offer any lawyering advice, but that is my personal opinion. I don't think that they should be liable for something that some horrible person generates. That horrible person should be liable for that horrible thing that they tried to make. If someone takes a car and does some horrible, criminal act with a car, you don't sue the car company over that, or you don't imprison the car company. You imprison the person who used that car to do something bad. And to go further into bad people just always doing something bad, I'd like to mention, I've had a little insight onto some of DALL-E 2's capabilities, and apparently there's a few ways around the content policy that OpenAI has put up. Obviously, if you try to just directly generate bad things in DALL-E 2, it's not going to generate them, and if you get caught, you're done for. It immediately blocks it, and you are not allowed, it just blocks it directly in there. They have a whole system in place. Apparently, there's a way around that filter, though, around those content filters, using various words to get nudity, apparently, out of DALL-E 2, as well as political figures and stuff like that. So apparently that's all still possible. So yeah, bad people, well, I don't want to consider people just trying to generate nudity in general or political figures bad people, but I'm saying that people will always try to find a way to break the rules no matter what, even if you have the most strict system in place, which is DALL-E 2. So in the end, I don't think it really matters if Stable Diffusion were to cancel their open source software. It would only temporarily delay the technology from, doing what it is capable of doing, even if what it's capable of doing is absolutely horrible. If there is anything we unfortunately know, it's that bad people are capable of doing bad things, and they will always find a way to do those bad things. The world is not perfect. I think that Stable Diffusion's taking a step in the right direction, actually, with its censorship, to try to mitigate some of the risks, at least, from happening. I think this will also help them have a better legal grounds if they do get sued by some celebrity or some other person who has been, disenfranchised in some way by the AI technology. So yeah, that was kind of a long little video. I would love to hear what you guys think down in the comments below, and I'd love to have a discussion and conversation about it. AI is coming, and it is capable of some crazy good things and crazy bad things as well. Nothing we can do to stop it, but, we should try to mitigate things at the very least. But I don't think so at the complete sacrifice of the technology's capabilities, which I think DALL-E 2 takes it a little too far for me. Stable Diffusion hopefully will just hit it right on the nice balance, but again, it's going to be open source, so who knows what's going to happen. I'm MattVidPro Productions. Thank you for watching. Check out a few of my other videos, and for those of you waiting on a video on Looking Glass, that should be coming very soon. Thanks for watching.